Ooh, I think that means I'm live, maybe. Oh my gosh. Okay, so yeah, so I brought up the Twitters, and is it on the YouTubes? I can't tell. I don't know if I can tell. Uh oh my gosh. Yes, and we're live on the YouTubes. And oh my gosh, and it looks like we're live on the Facebookas also. So we are officially live here, and it is it's incredibly exciting. So it's brand new technologies. It's stuff that I'm really excited to experiment with, and it looks like things are going swimmingly. So hi there, folks. It is Monday night, and welcome back for another After Hours live stream, and a special welcome for those of you that are joining us out on Twitter and YouTube for the first time, as well as those of you that have been hanging tough with us on Facebook Live. My gosh, got a jam-packed show for you tonight. The hour is just going to fly by. But first, I want to start off with I'm going to do something new, because like we know I've got these hinky pod decks that I've been talking about for so long. But I want to start off the new live streams with a question of the night, and I want to remind you that Mike Seibert Radio is powered by Poddex, and when you go to poddex.com and use my discount code MSRP10, you'll receive 10% off your first order. And tonight's question is coming from the interview deck. I don't know if anybody can see that, because it doesn't matter. Anyway, it's from the interview deck. I am going to try to shuffle cards here on a live stream. I don't know if I've mentioned this previously, but I am notoriously terrible at shuffling cards. So we'll see how this goes. All right, shuffle cards here. Well, once is sufficient. All right. So I'm gonna just fan these out, and I'm gonna pull one from the middle. I swear I've not looked at these already. I'm gonna pull one from the middle. And tonight's Pod Decks question of the night is: what are you most excited about right now? What are you most excited about right now? So that is tonight's Pod Decks question of the night. Sound off in the comments below to be a part of the show, and periodically I'll go back through before time runs out, and we'll talk about what we're excited for now. And as a reminder, poddex.com, use discount code MSRP10. They have a variety of card decks that are kind of like conversation starter prompts, including the interview deck, the what the heck deck, the would you rather deck. This one's a lot of fun. And the episode deck. This one is perfect for aspiring podcasters, content creators, folks that you maybe like have are running short on ideas and not sure how to start a conversation. There's a bunch of really cool episode prompts in here, just themes to kind of get you going. So anyway, there's all of those at more and more at poddex.com. And don't forget discount code MSRP10. Now, I do have a number of things that I'd like to talk about tonight, including the passing of Chadwick Boseman last Friday. But before I get to that, I'd like to bring on a very special guest who has been waiting very patiently as I fumble around with cards here to talk about an upcoming virtual Transformers fan convention by the fans, for the fans. She's at Robo Apollo on Twitter. Transformers fan artist Apollo, welcome back to Mike Seibert Radio, and thanks for taking the time to join us after hours.
Thanks for inviting me again, Mike. It's good to be back.
All right. Well, let's see. So first, before we talk about this upcoming adventure, because it's going to be an adventure, I think, between now and when this con actually launches. I first wanted to say I wanted to thank you for being so supportive of the recent content I've been doing, here on the live stream, and checking out my past podcasts and asking me all these cool questions. You've been kind of like a inspiring force in some of like this new stuff in these new trails I've been blazing. So I wanted to say thank you really quick before we got too terribly far.
Oh, you're welcome, Mike. I'm glad I was been able to be an inspiration for you, because I know that you got back into podcasting, rather recently, because you were kind of from what I understand, on the fence about it, like at the beginning of the year. But it's been cool. I went back and listened to a lot of your older podcasts. I just finished the one where you had the APDC guys on there. So that was a fun episode.
Yeah.
You covered some more serious stuff too, like human trafficking and stuff, which I thought was really interesting, and it's a topic that's, not really covered. So it's interesting that, your show has evolved from that to having more of like a pop culture, current pop culture event theme to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you going back and checking out those old episodes. Now, we had chatted a little bit offline during the week, kind of like I think you had asked me more or less straight out, are you going to do more serious stuff, or are you sticking with pop culture and Transformers? And I wanted to bring that up here, since really what I've kind of discovered this live stream, this new Monday night after hours thing is really kind of me getting into more personal stuff than it seems like. It seems like it's the thing that a lot of folks liked about Mike Seibert Radio, the podcast, but that I've kind of lost track of, not because I don't want to do it, but because I've been doing so much other content, like interviews and spotlighting independent artists, hanging out with folks, meeting new people, that I don't it doesn't feel like I take as much time as I used to just kind of talk about my headspace and just kind of what's going on with me. But I where I kind of am with the serious stuff is, you had mentioned that at kind of like the beginning of the year, and I think this was even before the COVID and the pandemic, where I felt kind of adrift, and I wasn't sure if I even wanted to keep podcasting and things like that. Now what I found, that once the pandemic kind of changed our outlooks on things, I thought, this would be a really good opportunity to redouble my efforts and double down on the things that make me happy, that make me inspired to want to do this goofy podcasting thing. And most of that is Transformers and pop culture. And really, like, over like the last 2 years, as you've discovered on your journey listening to some of those old episodes, it's like, if you go back to episodes from 2017, I almost never talk about Transformers, because that's just not what the show was. It was just more kind of basic pop culture. It was a radio show, so it was like, these are the bands coming to town, these are our homies that we're kind of putting on for, and things like that. But what I've found is that more recently, I just really like connecting with folks like we're doing here. And that's the stuff that speaks to me. So like, give you an example. Like one of the topics you had suggested was talking about the California wildfires, which are, still even now a huge problem. Thousands of folks have been displaced. People have been killed. It's really terrible. And it's one of those things where I don't necessarily know how to handle stuff like that, like in terms of like a goofy pop culture Transformers podcast. So I kind of tried to handle it in my own way, and I kind of found like a COVID wildfire meme that I read out loud. I don't think it went over the way that I was hoping it would. Because like even as I was getting through it, I'm like, oh, this is super cringe. I've made a huge mistake. But what it's made me realize is that, I don't know if I have the headspace and bandwidth to deal with serious stuff. That's not to say that I've got my head in the sand, because I mean, folks know where I work, and I deal with, the news every workday. So I think for me, for now, this live streaming, the podcasting, it's kind of an escape for me. It's like, rather than get bogged down or dragged down by the news of the day, it's like, you know what? I just want to hang out with my friends on a Monday night and talk about transforming robots. And so that's, a short answer long. That's kind of where I'm at with that, is that I'm just kind of keeping it kind of light and fluffy, but still having a healthy dose of I guess introspective reflection as well. It's kind of a weird contrast, but as far as like the human trafficking stuff, that is something that I would like to get back into in terms of like follow-up content. You mentioning that that you've gone back and listened to those old episodes reminds me that there was a whole nother season that I did that isn't on the Mike Seibert Radio feed, because like I realized that I'm like, maybe this material isn't appropriate for folks coming here to, hear me talk about bands and pop culture stuff. So I started a separate account on Anchor, and there's I want to say a half dozen more episodes on that. I'll link that up somewhere for folks to find it, but it's very good stuff. Also, I talked to even more folks in the anti-human trafficking community, and with like a little more confidence under my belt after doing another season of it, or doing a previous season. It's, we got even more in depth as to kind of like the systemic problems surrounding human trafficking. And it was really good stuff, but it is certainly not Mike Seibert Radio. So but yeah, I would definitely steer folks towards that. If I think about it while we're chatting, I'll drop a link here in the comments for folks to check out. But again, thank you so much for taking such an interest in some of my past stuff.
No, you're welcome. I wanted to just check out how the show's evolved, because what I usually do with podcasts, like when I find one, is I listen to all of it and then I'll write a review. But you've got so many episodes, it's gonna take me a while before I write you a review. So I just wanted to kind of cherry pick specific ones.
Yeah.
I know with the APDC guys, I binged their show. And I think I listened to like 100 episodes in like a few weeks. And that was a lot to do. It was pretty.
Yes.
But, then I wrote them a review, and, and was able to give them feedback on it. And, they've grown a lot since they started. And it's cool to see how far your show has come too. But it's always been really professional too, from what I've listened to so far. So.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And it's one of those things where I didn't really consider the binge experience when we were making the shows. In fact, I still, unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon how you want to look at it, don't really give that much consideration now, because with the APDC guys, Aaron, Ryan, and Caleb, the Autopod Decepticast, they're it's funny because like their shows started off like their first, I don't know, maybe 3 dozen episodes are less than an hour each, and you can just crank through them on a binge. And I think it was maybe about the time that they met me that like gradually over time their episodes get longer and longer and longer. And you can definitely tell which episodes I'm on because those are like double the usual length.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of funny though, because like, you know, as you mentioned, there are so many episodes, but they're so long also. So it's like, dude, I guess I never really considered that somebody would go back and listen to, you know, 102+ hour episodes. Because, you know, at the time we were just really just kind of like chasing the live experience. You know, we were doing a radio show and that was our time slot and that was the content we did. So I've made some poor habits, I think, in terms of like brevity and all of that. But it is interesting though. You know, getting that feedback on what the show used to sound like versus what it is now, because it is radically different in a lot of ways. Like usually around now I'd be looking at the clock and saying, okay, well, cool, coming up next is you know, this song by Motionless in White, and you're listening to KGRG on 89.9 FM. Hit us up 253-833-5004. I still remember the phone number all these years later. But anyway, yeah, this is and again, I'm repeating myself a lot at this point because I'm just so excited to be doing live content again. But this live stream stuff very much reminds me of the same type of headspace, like, you know, kind of like a belly full of butterflies and just like that. It's like, oh man, this is live and I got to like go and turn it on and all of that, just being like this crazed college DJ guy. But it is a lot of fun. But I have no idea where I was going with that. Like I said, normally I would just hit a button and like go to a song or whatever.
Yeah. Now
So
next.
exactly. So let's so again, thank you so much for jumping on with us, and let's get to it, because like we were talking about TF cons and fan conventions, and you've, as near as I could tell, this is your idea. And as I posted in our Discord not too long ago, now that we're doing like this announcement thing, we kind of have to do it now. We're really doing this thing. So without any more further ado, Apollo, why don't you tell us about this mad experiment that you've got going on, and that you've called out to some of your friends on. Let's talk about Voss City.
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of history. So like when I went to TFCon for the first time, I was thinking like, oh, it'd be cool if there was another convention, you know, and I never like gave it a second thought, you know, because at the time we had TFCon and then TF Nation in the United Kingdom. But, you know, and then I didn't think about it again. Well, with COVID happening, this whole year has been a complete mess. You know, none of us have been able to get together as friends. And with TFCon, that was our way to get together a few times a year to hang out, because all of us are across the country and in other countries across the world. And we're all stuck at home right now. And so, you know, TF Nation happened and recently, and I popped on for a few of those panels. And then, you know, I realized, well, that's the last thing for Transformers this year. We usually have TFCon in October, but that got canceled, you know, and it's been rescheduled for an in-person one in October of 2021, I think in Baltimore. So I just kind of put out there on Twitter whimsically, like, well, since there's TFCon's canceled, can anyone interested in an online event? And it got a ton of response, like people retweeting it, saying, count me in. And then I was like, well, I'll reach out to a few friends and make a Discord server and, you know, let's go for it. And so I was trying to come up with a name, and, I'm a huge fan of the Seekers, like the, Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp, and all those other frame types. I really like the folks with wings. So Vos is their city. So I'm like, well, why don't we call it Vos City Con? I just need to come up with a name so I can secure, the email and Twitter handle and make a Discord server. But I am really shocked at how fast this is coming together. I put in a suggested list of panels, and just everyone who's volunteered to help has had great ideas, which is awesome. I'm just really excited about it. We have a few official artists that are going to be doing panels already. And I really, and our team's diverse too, the planning team, and which is exciting too, because we're going to have a variety of, different events that happen. And I like the whole idea that it's a fan run thing. And I know TFCon is too, and other conventions, but I used to go to a lot of anime conventions, and my favorite one, which was fan run, is Fanime in San Jose, California. And their whole thing was like, this is by fans for fans. And it's like, this is what this whole event is going to be about. We're fans. Like, we just want to all get together and talk about robots and have focused to specific things for each of these events, and have a variety of events and things that may have not been done at other conventions. And, I am still just so grateful, first of all, for TFCon, because that's where I met most of you, was from that convention. I have such great friends because of it, and I'm surprised we never ran into each other, Mike. But it's just been this is a totally separate event, and we pushed it out to November to make that point that it's a totally separate event. It's going to be after the election, so hopefully people are in good mood. I was thinking about that, because I'm like, and then you push it out again, it's Thanksgiving, and then holidays, and I'm really excited about it. When we'll see, how far this goes. It's going to be 2 days, and if it's very successful, this could turn into like a real life thing too. We'd probably want to move it out to a different date, just so it doesn't conflict with other conventions, because I don't want to do that. Because I still want to go to TFCon,
right.
Good show. And it's just so exciting. I am so stoked about the panels that we're talking about having, and I think it's going to be really good.
I do also, and I'm really excited. I mean, one of the things that really caught my attention, and thank you for inviting me, by the way. That was that was very nice. But what I found was, once we got on the Discord server, how quickly ideas just started to evolve, to the point where this was something that you were just kicking around as doing a one-day fun fan thing, is kind of like possibly at the same time that TFCon would have been, but then it very quickly became something so much larger. And now it's it's gone from a 1-day thing to a 2-day thing. And I think even with some of the exciting content that a few of us have been kicking around, I don't even know if that's going to be enough time to contain all of the cool, exciting content that have been that's being suggested. Really, a lot of you had mentioned it earlier, but what makes it so exciting for me is being part of this Transformers fan content creation community, is the diverse types of folks that are involved in that fandom. I mean, obviously we've talked about that in so many different places and so many different times on the podcast, but that's really what caught my attention. It's like, oh, there's a lot of cool folks, and what I guess I would consider to be kind of heavy hitters in terms of kind of the fan community. So do we I didn't think about this before we went live, but do we want to talk about some of the folks that are involved?
Yeah, I think we can mention some folks' names, and then I'm actually going to bring up a list of some of the ideas. So if I'm looking down, I'm looking at my phone about like this. It's not me texting other people. Yeah, no, we've got like such a cool cast of folks. So Wasabi joined me on the panel for the convention for SciFest Northwest back at the beginning of the month. And, she's going to be involved, and she's just bringing all these ideas to the table, and we might get a few guests too because of her. I don't want to announce anything quite yet because I don't think that's sealed yet. But, like she's brilliant. Like she just has so many good ideas and like really good energy too. Like, so, yeah, and then we've got Lita, who brings very positive energy and has had great marketing ideas and ideas for panels. Like I think we even talked about doing a game show. So that'll be really fun. Genevieve is participating as well, and she just is like the super fan like of Transformers. She just has so much knowledge and brings such good insights and to this too. So we just, those are just some of the folks involved, and I'm just so excited because it's like we already have like a ton of ideas for things that haven't been done at these conventions before in the past.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up some stuff now. I'll bring up my original list of ideas, and I have not been on here today because, as I was mentioning to you, Mike, earlier, I'm playing with the idea of looking at a place to buy. So instead of rent, so I've been in real estate land, but, obviously like for conventions, you have opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies. It's a part of any convention. Obviously a toy panel because most of us collect Transformer figures. And, it's based off of selling toys. That's why there's, a show and comics and whatnot. Doing the fan-based panels like fan fiction, fan art, a pop culture Transformers panel that talks about, the resurgence of fans because of the Bayverse movies. That's actually what got me curious about Transformers as an adult, because I saw The Last Night in movie theater with a friend of mine. And then we're going to do an online artist alley thing. I don't know if it's going to be a panel or just like a list of things of artists, like a web page or something. Also, Transformers history panel is brought up as an idea, and the game show. A cosplay panel was brought up.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just going to scroll through here really quick.
Yeah.
I think there was talks about doing a game, another game, but I think that might have gotten canceled because we're still in the planning phase. I wanted to see if we could get like a concert going, but I think I think they're touring in person starting in the fall because they're coming to Portland in December. And so I'm going to be seeing them then. So I don't know if you bought a ticket for when they were going to be in Seattle, right?
I did. I want to say it's December 1st or the 2nd.
Yeah. And I think they're in Portland like the 4th or something. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, so I think they might be touring at that time, but Yeah, we're going to have like 2 days of events, like, which is crazy. You know, as you said, it might not be enough. And I'm just, we'll keep it to 2 days because I know you're working, I work, we work full-time jobs and, have lives outside of this too. So, that's kind of an overview of it. So.
Well, so one, it's incredibly exciting. And again, it's cool to be on the ground level of something new, and something that's kind of made by fans for fans, but also as kind of like a reaction of sorts. Because I know there's been some discussion about that as well, is like, this is almost like an answer to some of the perceived shortfalls of TFCon and folks that aren't as well represented or as well served. And I love all of that. I'm really excited to just kind of like, shake up the bottle and do something different. But a couple things. One, I don't recall, have we actually announced the date? I know we were talking about it being in the fall, and we talked about it being in November, usually around like the around the election, but I forget, did we actually say what the days were yet?
I didn't announce it on the Twitter handle, but we can do that announcement now because we did set the date. So
exclusive announcement.
Exclusive. So it's going to be taking place November 7th and November 8th.
Nice. Very good. See, that was so lame. That's so lame. I got to turn up my my air horn app. There we go.
There we go.
That's dumb. I'm never going to do that again.
November 7th and 8th, be there or be square.
That's very cool. Well, that's very exciting for something for us to look forward to. You have created a Twitter handle for Vos City Con, and that is the handle, right? Vos City Con, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I wanted to pick something that was easy and short. So, and like I remembered, Emerald City Con too. So I'm like, we'll just do that. So, it's at Vos City Con, VOS, and then the word city, and then con, CON for convention. But we still need help, for panels and for logistics, because we're going to need moderators for this live event and tech support too. I think we're going to be using Twitch for it because that was really successful for TFN and
SideFest as well.
Yeah, it went really well. But if anyone wants to help, please send a direct message to that account. You can also @ me at Robo Apollo for Twitter, and I'll get back to you right away. Like, I'm on Twitter all the time, except Saturdays. That's been kind of like my stay away from technology day. But I
gotcha.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I mean, like, this started off as just kind of like a, hey, like, let's put something on to, oh wow, this is actually turning into a thing. So
yeah. Well, and like I said, it's like with this announcement here, it's like now we're kind of on the hook. We got to do it. So but yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to make sure that we addressed here, is that, like, let's say I'm a customizer or a podcaster or a fan artist or somebody that's interested in doing live streaming content. I think we're at a spot now where it's like there's no bad ideas. Come at me, bro.
Yeah.
So, and really, because I think one of the mission statements of what we're putting out is being inclusive for everybody.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, there was lag there. No, yeah, that's the whole
Yep.
mission of it, is that this is an inclusive event. We want as many diverse voices as possible, because it's proven when you get diverse voices, you're going to get more ideas, and your ideas will be even better because you have, you know, people with different backgrounds and different skill sets. And you know, it's proven in the business world the work it's proven for this too, you know, for friendships and for this event too. And we already have a ton of different ideas, and I'm just really excited at all the different ideas we have. It's not going to be like, I don't think it's going to be like a lot of the other conventions we've gone to before. You know, maybe like some of the anime ones I've gone to, but you know, Transformers is so focused that we can really like tune in on specific things, and it's not as broad as something like an anime convention. So
Gotcha. Very cool. Well, and unlike, say, PulseCon, which is going to be put on by Hasbro, that's also a virtual convention thing. That's September 25th and 26th. But I like, well, I don't actually like it, but it's mind-boggling to me that they just announced it today, and they're like, yeah, for US and Canada only. And I don't think that Fo City Con is going to have the same types of restrictions. So, you know, because apparently, I don't know if you knew this or not, meaning like the folks that are out there, there's Transformers fans in other parts of the world. I know, it's crazy. So anyway, I saw that announcement today and just kind of rolled my eyes. It's just not a good look for Hasbro Pulse.
no, it's not at all. I didn't even know. I missed that announcement. Like, I haven't really been on Twitter today at all, which is weird, but for me. But no, they're really screwing over their fans in Europe and other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Like, they don't get toys, they get stuff late all the time. Like, I don't get it. I don't get why you would, you know, do that to your fans when it is a worldwide fandom. So no, this convention does not have any like country restrictions or anything. If you're, you know, in Japan or anywhere and you want to tune in, or if you want to help out, you know, just send us a DM. So, you know, we want everyone to enjoy this and as many people as possible. And that's the cool thing about it being online. You know, when you have an in-person event, you know, you have travel costs and stuff, and who knows what in-person events will be like next year too. We might all still being masked up, and I wouldn't be surprised about that, just with how this whole COVID thing is unfolding, you know, especially in the United States. You know, with there being a surge in some areas of cases. So you know, and masks might become the new norm too. So
yeah. Well, and it seems to me that fan conventions would be like the main place that something like that would be socially acceptable. It's like, you know, we've all been to conventions, and, you know, masks are, you know, generally a large component of cosplay. So it wouldn't surprise me if the fan community is the one that figures this out first.
yeah, well, I mean, technically, like, you know, a cosplay mask would count as like a cloth mask, you know, at least for protection against a virus. So yeah, I gotta normalize wearing fun masks.
Yeah. Well, and you know, masks just keep getting better and better also, you know, like in terms of like, you know, comfort and durability. And I mean, because like the masks that I wear now are different than the ones I was wearing at the beginning. So it's yeah, it just we just see that ongoing innovation there. So that's
Oh, I
that's
know.
kind of where we're at on that.
I know we're into mass comfort now. Like, I know I got my work, they sent us some masks recently and they fit perfectly. Like it covers, your nose, and it's like, and they're cloth masks, and it just goes over your chin. It's just perfect. And I'm like, they've started to learn how to like make these fit right and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I bought masks from people that have made them, and you can see how like the patterns have evolved to be more efficient with like fabric and stuff too, and fit better. So yeah, it's a whole interesting thing. I do hope though by next year we do have in-person events though, because that was the coolest thing about going to like TFCon and stuff, is hanging out with friends. And I really look forward to going to the next TFCon. And if this becomes a annual thing, this event too, but we'd be more busy with, planning stuff and making sure things run smoothly. And that's different in a real world environment versus online too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah. So, if there are any fan artists out there that want to be a part of the Artist Alley, to message me as well, and we can get you set up. Or if you want to help create artwork to promote the show, please let us know, because you guys know that I'm an artist too, but I don't have the time to draw stuff for this. So if any graphic designers or artists want to help with that, like we don't have a banner, we don't have an official icon. I'm just using a picture of Starscream right now. So if someone wants to draw like the official icon and like the banner for Twitter, and like if we do a website, just let me know, and I'd appreciate the help. So, but yeah, it's going to be super cool. Like I'm looking forward to, this whole planning evolving. So you've got 2 months now? Yeah. So
it's going to go by very quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think so. It's definitely going to, like, it's going to be September tomorrow. Like this whole year has gone by, like, overall very fast, but there's been moments where it's just been like, like it's so slow.
Yeah, I hear you. So yeah. So, if folks want to become involved with Voc City Con, like Apollo just mentioned, hit her up on Twitter at RoboApollo or at Voc City Con. That's that account is now open for DMs, so folks can just kind of say, hey man, I do some fan art and I want to participate, or being a content creator and wanting to be part of the scene, we're looking for all comers. So that's going to be super cool. Again, that is going to be, why do I not have it written down? That is, no, really, I don't. Oh my gosh. I'd like to say I'm usually more prepared, but I'm not. No, so we're talking Voc City Con, an online Transformers event, an online event by fans for fans. That is going to be November 7th and 8th of this year, just a couple short months away. So that's going to be really exciting. Apollo, it's always a pleasure. I really appreciate you jumping on with us this evening. And before we part ways for now, I'm looking at the clock. It looks like I've still got some time in this after hours segment. You wanna hang around for a couple more minutes? I got a couple other things I'd like to run by you if you're still down to clown.
Yeah, why not? I mean, I'm signed up, as long as we don't go until midnight. Yeah.
Oh gosh, no. Because really, and maybe this is, in inside baseball behind the curtain. Basically, what I'm going to do as soon as we get done with the live stream, I'm going to start working on processing and editing this broadcast down. And this will end up being this week's episode of Mike Seibert Radio podcast, just so that we can kind of get the word out that much faster and have something to be able to share and to spread. So yeah, I'm not going to hang around all night, I swear. But there were a couple things that you had brought up last week that I kind of wanted to loop back around to. One of the shows that you had mentioned was you had just started on season 5 of Lucifer out there on the Netflix, and I had shared with you at the time that I haven't watched season 5, and it's because we hadn't watched season 4 yet.
Mm-hmm.
So Lucky and I, we just started season 4 this week. So we're like 2 to 3 episodes in, and it's interesting. It's the thing that I haven't quite figured out yet is if these were episodes that were produced exclusively for Netflix or if they're leftover shows from Fox, because I've noticed, one, there isn't any swearing in it, and that the violence is still kind of like, whatever would pass for late night on Fox. It hasn't. I think what I've noticed with like a lot of shows that make the jump from network TV to streaming is they can't wait to start swearing. It's like, you get into like Star Trek Discovery and we're just dropping F-bombs just because. So it kind of surprised me that Lucifer hasn't gone into that content yet, but it is fun reacquainting with these characters. I had forgotten how much I missed the show, and I think you bringing that up kind of lit that fire under me. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's just been sitting there and we just haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, I don't 100% remember season 4. I watched it last year, and I don't want to say any spoilers by accident. So you have to kind of say where you are, for me to comment. But I think that's when Netflix took over, was for season 4, because I think they ended it at season 3, and then Netflix bought it and took over it. But season 5, and they split it into 2 parts, so there's only 1 part out right now. It's really good. And then I liked season 4 though a lot too. I'm trying not to say anything so I don't want to spoil it.
Sure.
But I think Netflix did a really good job. I think the effects for the show are a lot better, and just the acting is so awesome on there. All the actors they got for the characters are really, really talented. I love Maze, her and her knives. She is crazy for those knives, and she's just such a badass. And it's just it's interesting what they do with that show, with the plot, and it's cool. And that's a property that ties into DC, right?
One more time, there was some digital lag there. I missed that. Sorry.
Oh, and isn't the whole Lucifer series a part of DC, the DC universe, technically? I'm not 100% sure how that ties in. I know Neil Gaiman, I think he does the writing for the comic book or something, and he's a character in Sandman too, right?
Yeah. Basically, this is a kind of spin-off of Neil Gaiman's the Dreaming type universe with Sandman and Death and all of those characters. So the character of Lucifer in the Vertigo books is a little different, but because Tom Ellis does he brings a lot of flamboyancy to the Lucifer character that isn't quite there, or at least doesn't translate in comic book form, because the dude just oozes charisma and is just a very magnetic presence, which is kind of what you want for your devil. So watching him is a lot of fun. But yeah, basically so the character is a little different in the comics, but kind of fundamentally the same type of thing. It's like, the devil decides that, he enjoys, his friendships and found family on Earth and kind of weirdly paints him as kind of like a sympathetic figure at times, which I think kind of appeals to a lot of folks in that, like, we kind of like our traditional villains to have a little more nuance to them, other than just I'm the devil, I'm the bad guy. There's a lot of complication to that character that I think really resonates with folks.
Yeah, it's really interesting, learning about this version of Lucifer and like the whole like, him being mad with dad and, God and stuff. And, it's just it's interesting that their whole family dynamic, and how, it's, they're, it's cool though. I really like it. Yeah. And I like how his character's grown over the past seasons, from when we first saw him to, where we are now. So it's like, oh, he has
Very
feelings.
Cool.
Like,
yeah.
So and then but yeah, and it's just interesting, his whole vulnerability thing, around the Deckard, that he can get hurt around right. her. Wait, you've been seeing that, right? Like, you're trying to make sure so spoilers.
Oh yeah, that's from episode 1.
Yeah.
And I mean that's been a ongoing plot thread. So yeah, no fear of spoilers on that.
Okay, good. Yeah, because it's like
you're good.
The show's been out a while, but still, there's that whole fear of spoilers because it is still a new show. Like, and there's a lot out there on the internet, and it's easy to get spoiled. But I'm glad you're enjoying
Quite so
far. Yeah. And I finished Avatar recently, and I'm on Korra now.
Gotcha. So. Very cool. Let's see. So what else? Let me go back to my notes real quick. Oh, mm-hmm. I between last week and this week, I finished and went through War for Cybertron Siege again. And so I finally got through it. My hottest take, it's fine. I don't find myself as offended by it as some other fans, though I totally understand everybody's hot take on it. It was just the biggest question that I couldn't answer as I was viewing is, who is this for? And because like it's not for kids, it's not quite for adults. It's just like it's just kind of there. Do you have any particular putting you way on the spot, but any particular hot takes, kind of spoiler free, that you want to share for the War for Cybertron Siege series?
It was better the second time around for me because I knew what to expect with it. My biggest beef with it, quite honestly, was some of the voice acting, especially Optimus and Megatron. They talk so slow, and it drove me nuts. Like, whereas Bumblebee and Alita, who had fabulous voice actors and, were able to, they sounded completely natural and how you'd expect the characters to sound. But Optimus and Megatron, I was just like, please just stop talking or like speed up your talk. I don't know if it's because, like the guy who did Optimus's voice, if he was told to sound like Peter Cullen or what, instead of finding his own voice for this character. But that was the most frustrating thing. And then also too, that they didn't really explain the backstory on the war. Like, why are they fighting? They keep mentioning Alpha Trion, but it's like, okay, and But for me, it was better the second time around because I knew what to expect in regards to like, okay, Optimus is going to drone on here for like 5 minutes, and I'm just, I can just focus on the visuals.
Yeah.
I think visually it looked pretty. They did look exactly like the toys. They must have used the same models as the toys, but I did like some of the hidden funny things in it, like when Soundwave did the face. I think he face palms at one point. I don't know if you noticed that, Mike, as when Megatron's talking with Starscream and Shockwave. And I'm trying not to say spoilers. And then and then they're just like, I think he's just like this, like Soundwave.
Yeah, he's got a pretty good face palm. It was pretty good. It was pretty good. No. Which is a different look for Soundwave, because he's generally like the super loyal guy, and to kind of have that differing perspective was interesting. There was one character appearance that I think for me is like the big takeaway. It's like if this series didn't give me anything to hang on to, it gave me one thing, and it is a mild spoiler, but I can't figure out how to dance around it. I love Sound Blaster.
Oh my God.
He's like he's my dude. I mean, I really enjoyed because I mean it was a surprise. It was a huge surprise, and that I just really like what they did with his character. So of anything else, that gives me something to hang on to. It's like I like that.
That was really enjoyable, that whole scene when they went there to his like place, his hideout, and and he just had a lot of character, and I remembered seeing that toy when it came out, and I was just like, oh, it's just a recolor of Soundwave, and I passed up on it, and now I have regret. I remember seeing it a few times at Walmart, and there are many regrets now. Like, even though I'm trying to downsize my collection, but
it's interesting.
He's a cool character, though. That was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed Bumblebee in it too, and Alita 1.
Yeah.
And, I always like seeing Starscream too. That was interesting with him and Jetfire, and I won't say anything, because this was the first time, I think, since G1 where Jetfire and Starscream and the show interact, like very closely. That was interesting how they handled their relationship, in this. So, I don't want to say spoilers for people who haven't seen it, but it was that was very surprising to me, very much so. But I have a question for you, Mike, though. Have you seen Are you caught up on Cyberverse on season 3?
No.
There is so much Soundwave. There is so much. You have to watch it.
I hear you. I'll get there. I think I just need to like carve out an afternoon and just get through it, because from what I understand, I mean, like the seasons aren't that long. I mean, it's like, the episodes are like 15 minutes a whack, and I don't know how many episodes there are, but it's probably something that I could get through with a concerted amount of effort. I just haven't gotten there, but I will get there soon.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because
Oh, there was some lag there again.
Yeah.
I
think
Oh, okay. I'm a few episodes behind too. It's easy to get behind on them. Like, I think I'm like 4 episodes behind now because they release them every week.
Gotcha. But it's done now, right? It's over.
It's technically over. I think they're releasing a few more episodes, but like someone had them leaked online earlier. So there are people who have watched the whole thing. I've been watching the official release for it. So I know spoilers about a character that shows up in the last episode, but I don't know how they show up or why they show up. So
Gotcha. Well, it looks like the internet is conspiring against us, because it seems like the lag is getting increasingly untenable, unfortunately. But again, Apollo, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me after hours tonight. And before we part ways, could you remind folks where we can find your art out on the internet? How we can connect with you out on the social medias, and remind folks where they can go to if they're interested in participating in VoCityCon.
All right, so you can find my art on Twitter and Instagram. The handle's the same. It's at RoboApollo. And I have like a pinned tweet with like my information for commission prices, and you can look through like some samples. And for the convention, if you are interested in helping, because this is fan put on, we're not making money off this. So that's the Twitter handle is at VoCityCon. We plan on having more of a social media presence, but we're going to need help managing that too. So any help's appreciated on that front. So send that account a direct message. And thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. And again, I appreciate you being flexible and excited, because it was one of those things. I think it was maybe like yesterday or today or something. It's just like it just popped into my head. I was like, wait a sec, because I had posted in the Discord saying like, well, is it cool if I talk about it on the live stream here? And then I was just like, wait a second, Apollo's been hanging tough with me on the live stream on the other side, being like an awesome participating fan. It's like, wait a minute, let's just have you on. It seems like that would make so much more sense, rather than you watching on your side. And then, anyway, this just seemed like a much cooler way of doing it.
Yeah, it was cool. No, thanks for having me on again. And I look forward to being back, because, when I come back on, there will probably have like more stuff, like, actually finalized, like maybe we'll actually have a schedule out where people can see what events are happening at what time. So
exactly. Well, and as we've already said, it's in the very early stages. Everything's in pencil. We're basically in the blue sky period, where it's rampant brainstorming. And so we're gonna do something again, probably in, I don't know, halfway between now and the show. Get as many of us as possible here on a Brady Bunch Zoom, to kind of talk about all the cool stuff that we've got set up and that we're going to do. And it's just going to be a lot of fun. So just kind of stay tuned to all of our social channels for that announcement of what we're going to do. But for now, Apollo, thank you so much for taking the time. And any parting thoughts before I let you get back to your evening?
Keep it fun and wash your hands and wear a mask and do social distancing. It really works. So
absolutely,
we're in this for the long haul.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much. Have a great night, and we'll chat again. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. I'll be back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll hit that. See if that works. Okay. And I think I'm still here. Yes, I think I'm still here. Technology and getting used to things. Oh, I know what's different. Now that Apollo is disconnected, I can't hear the ambience anymore, and that's kind of what I'm rambling. All right. So I noticed that it's just past 9 o'clock. So much like last week, let's do a little overtime because I got a couple things that I wanted to talk about before I got out of here. So we are in overtime, and let's go. A couple few things that I didn't get a chance to follow up with while I was chatting with Apollo, but I wanted to loop back around to conversations about collecting because I know she is in the process of selling off a bunch of figures and is kind of trying to reduce her collection. So go to her Twitter handle at RoboApollo, check out some of the cool stuff that she's got there for sale. And I bring that up because last week I was talking about some of the challenges that I've created at home with regards to what I've been doing with my collection, like the perspective of pre-ordering and buying new stuff and not necessarily doing stuff with my old stuff. Like I told you the story about how basically we've been living in our new house for a few months now, and all of my alternators were still in the box from when we moved. And I it took me a while to understand what some of the friction was, but once some of my friends kind of helped me out and I kind of had that epiphany there, it's like, oh, deal with the stuff that I have. But one of the other perspectives that I landed on that I didn't mention last week, I didn't think about it, is that I think for me sometimes in kind of like this, I guess I call it contemporary collecting, because like I've been, kind of, since I'm more connected and involved with the Transformers fan community, I have more knowledge and information in terms of when toys become available, and as such, I'm more connected to that, and so I've been doing pre-orders and buying stuff and things like that. But what I've also discovered in my enthusiasm to do that, I I landed on a perspective that I didn't quite know that I had, in that sometimes wanting is better than actually having. Um, so there's a bunch of stuff that, like, once you get into that perspective of pre-ordering, I want this. Tell you a story. I pre-ordered a bunch of stuff from Walmart. Like, it's like a retro series blaster, G1 reissue blaster, those RED figures, which are basically like Marvel Legends style Transformers figures. All of them were delayed, and then they were delayed again, and then delayed again. And in those delays, it gave me the perspective to think about, do I really want these? Aside from the question of, hey, where are these going to go? Um, the problem that I've created for myself, that I've found that is different than some of my other friends that are collectors, is that my collection is not specifically focused, in that, like, I have certain characters that I collect. I've got a bunch of Boba Fett stuff. I've got a bunch of Jango Fett stuff. I've got a bunch of Snake Eyes figures, but I don't have all and every of those. But I got a ton. I've also got some random Star Wars stuff. I've got a bunch of Transformers stuff, but I don't have any one thing that I consistently collect. With the exception of Transformers alternators, which I've talked about a lot, and I think that's why it was enticing to me, because it's something that I could collect as a finite thing. There are only so many characters, and once I have them all, it's a complete collection, which I found very appealing. Same thing with like the Takara storybook style reissues. They're numbered. There's only 21. Well, technically 22. Optimus Prime is number 0, but they're numbered, so that appeals to me, in that, like, it's something finite that that I can collect. But unlike, say, some of my other friends that collect Transformers and think about how their display is going to be, because like the collection or the display drives the collection and vice versa. Whereas I don't think about that. It's like, that's a really cool Snake Eyes figure. I want it. That's a really cool Boba Fett figure. I want it. Wow, that's a really neat Soundwave figure. I want it. That kind of thing. And maybe this is a larger issue for a different time, but I also went through phases where, since I wasn't as connected to the the toy collecting fan community, I spent a lot of years not buying stuff. So I think some of my recent behavior is reflective of, oh, well, I'm going to buy all this stuff that I told myself no to, which is not necessarily constructive behavior. So I'll leave that there for now. But I just wanted to mention that before I got out of here. Real quick, I want to give a couple shout outs so you can play the music in your head, shout it out loud and all that. Between all of like the different live platforms that I'm streaming to tonight, I didn't want to, and bringing on a guest, I didn't want to mess around with sound effects. Maybe next time as the show gets incrementally larger. But I wanted to give a shout out to my dude Mario Magana. I shouted out him last week as well, but he's published a new episode of his recently relaunched podcast called Northwest Phenomenon. It's basically like, if you're into Coast to Coast, Art Bell and the kind of I don't know, I guess paranormal conspiracy type space. He's really been leaning into that recently, and his audio quality has been incredibly spectacular. I mean, the dude's an engineer and a KGRG kid like me. So check that out. Northwest Phenomenon. I've shared that in a couple different spots. So that's available for you as well. And I also wanted to give a huge shout out to previous guests on Mike Seibert Radio, the Steve Strout and Caleb Lowry. They have teamed up, and they have launched their first podcast called the Steve and Crypto Show podcast, where I got Steve sent me a copy of the first episode. I unfortunately have not listened to it yet, but I'm really excited to. Steve Strout's a good dude. He's huge in the fan community as well, goes to all of the Pacific Northwest conventions, and is just a really cool dude. And I haven't really chatted with Caleb Lowry since oh gosh, it was probably almost 2 years ago, where he was putting together a hip hop show in their hometown of Port Townsend. It was Seskrew and G Moski, and it was that was a really fun interview and a really fun episode. But I haven't had the opportunity to kick it with him since. But I know Steve has had a lot of questions for me as he's been trying to build his podcast, and I've tried to help out as much as I can, but also still kind of trying to be as hands off. Like, it's like I can answer your questions, and I can give you some information, but you still got to do the thing. And I couldn't be more proud of those guys for publishing their first episode and getting it out there. So I'm really excited to check out the Steve and Crypto Show podcast. Let's see. So what else? So as I mentioned earlier, with this is basically going to be episode 289 of Mike Seibert Radio. Well, I don't know why I'm going to do numbering wise yet. It doesn't matter. But normally what I've been doing with these Monday night live streams is telling you about what's coming up on this week's podcast Seibert Radio, but I also talk about some other really cool podcasts and adventures that I've been on. And I was recently part of the voice cast, reassembling the Transformers Reanimated team with Greg and Yoshi and who all was on that episode. I probably should have had that in front of me, but the latest audio podcast of Transformers Reanimated dropped last week, and it's part 2 of Transformers Reanimated. It's issue number 11, part 2 of a story called For the Love of Hate, which that one was a lot of fun. As I recall, because we recorded it a while ago, I reprised my role as Bumblebee, kind of Luke Skywalker Bumblebee, but I also get to play Chip Chase as well, and I don't want to spoil the plot, because basically what the 2-part story involves is a lot of the human characters from Transformers the cartoon, G1, seasons 1 and 2. It kind of brings together like all of the human characters, the protagonists and the villains, and they play a crucial role in the plot and the adventure. But Chip Chase does something really cool in this story that has a huge connection to something we see in Transformers the movie. So I thought it was really cool the way that Greg and Yoshi handled it in terms of how they set up and wrote the scene. But Chip also gets some really cool moments that, like, if it was an episode of the show, I would have really enjoyed it. And I think fans of the Chip Chase character would have really appreciated that as well. So you can go check that out at transformersreanimated.com. It's basically a fan fiction project from Greg and Yoshi, and it started as a comic book pitch to IDW Publishing. They rejected it, didn't even look at the script, and rather than being discouraged, undeterred, they've been publishing it as fan fiction, and now they've been doing it for just over a year now. So it's been really fun to be play whatever small part that I can in their endeavor, as being part of like the ensemble voice cast there. So that's anyway, transformersreanimated.com. You can also check out issue number 13, which is an Insecticons story in the mall, with a cover and art by my dude Ryan Jett from the Autopod Decepticast, which we've talked about quite a lot during this episode. And so yeah, I was involved with that dropped last week. The other thing, and I don't have it in front of me, so I apologize for that, but I'll share all this in the show notes. But I talk about my time at Green River College and being part of the journalism program and being part of KGRG. They through the combined efforts of a handful of key alumni, including Charlie Harger and Stephen Kilbreth and a few other folks, they've produced a video for to kind of show what the journalism program is at Green River College. And I have a small cameo in it. I'll tell you a brief story. Charlie reached out to me, award-winning journalist and reporter for Como Radio, Charlie Harger, and one of my mentors, reached out to me and asked me if there's any photos of me at work. And so I didn't have any that were specifically usable. So like one evening, after hours, after I clocked out, I just took a whole bunch of dumb selfies of me in various studios, making sure I had like all the station signs behind me and things like that, and that actually made it into the video. So anyway, there's it's on the Green River College YouTube page. I've shared it on a few of my social platforms already. I'll drop a link here in the comments, and I'll share it again. But yeah, check it out. It's a lot of fun. And if you are in Washington State and are interested in taking those journalism courses and being a part of KGRG or taking Charlie Harger's podcasting class. Class starts on September 21st. As far as I know, the entire campus is all offsite learning this quarter, and Charlie has been teaching his podcasting class as a virtual class for like the last 2 quarters, I believe. So yeah, he's really kind of finding his footing on that. I'm actually looking to have Charlie on the show again coming up soon to talk about one, his podcasting class, but also the things that he's had to do, one as a journalist and a reporter for a radio station, but also as a podcast instructor, the things that he's had to do to evolve into kind of like this current state that we're in, what with the COVID. So look for that in the next couple weeks, certainly sometime before September 21st. We'd love to have Charlie back on the show. And finally, as I close out here, I wanted to talk very briefly about the passing of Chadwick Boseman. Now, we know him most prominently as Black Panther in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. He also played Jackie Robinson in a movie called 42, James Brown in Get On Up, and Thurgood Marshall in the movie called Marshall, as well as a couple other movies as well. Passed away on Friday of colon cancer at the age of 43. And I shocked doesn't begin to express the feeling that that many of us have, and it hit me especially hard for a couple different reasons. One, just to say nothing about the loss of such a spectacular talent and all of that promise of potential. I saw a particularly ghoulish article from Screen Rant, which basically, like, I think maybe just a couple short hours after his passing was announced, somebody had written and posted an article about like Black Panther 2. Here's what Marvel can do, how they can move on from Chadwick Boseman or something like it. It was fucking ghoulish. Fortunately, Screen Rant pulled it down and kind of put a limp-wristed retraction. I can't even call it an apology because, they said like it was well-intentioned, which is not good. But anyway, I weep for the potential of what this talented actor would continue to put out into the world and what he would continue to do with the Black Panther character, as well as the other amazing things that he had in front of him. So that goes without saying, even though I've just said, but for me and folks also my age, because I know I have a lot of folks that are in the similar age bracket. He's basically our age, talking to my friends that are in that same age group, and it's so that's that's a wake up call, and that's upsetting. But then also that he passed from colon cancer at the age of 43. And it's interesting. I'm not making light of it. I'm not making jokes here, I swear. But like, I'm sure many of us have seen commercials for Cologuard, which is a product that is, near as I can tell, you poop in a box and ship it off, and then they scan it for changes in your DNA. And it's more or less, it's a product that can screen for early signs of colon cancer. But I bring that up not to be gross or funny or clever or whatever, but one of the things that it says in the commercials specifically, it's like for folks ages 45 and up. And that really kind of strikes me, because Chadwick Boseman was 43 and had been suffering the disease for a number of years. One of the revelations that came out that I found as enlightening as it was upsetting, that a lot of those movies that he had been working on, he already had it and was kind of trying to fight through it as best as possible. I was talking with one of my coworkers, and I had posited that perhaps the reason why he had so many movies in like the last couple years is maybe he knew his time was limited, and maybe he was trying to put out as much work and do as much as he could before it was too late. I don't know that for certain, and I certainly can't guess. But another thing that came up, that again is nightmarish in retrospect. But I remember like 4 or 5 months ago, where their pictures of him had surfaced where he was especially thin, looked very gaunt, very unhealthy. And I remember folks talking about, kind of nicknaming him Crack Panther or something like that. And it was just it was gross then, but I do remember seeing it, and then I do remember also putting it out of my mind. It was just something that didn't stick with me. And sure enough, come to find out now, is because he was in stage 4. And so I have a friend in the Transformers fan community also, Sir Jimmers, Jim Simonic, Distortion Productions. He does a whole project, Electronic Saviors. It's industrial music to fight cancer, and basically that is a project that he started basically as a answer and a response to his struggle with, or not struggle with his survival from colorectal cancer as well. And so I met Jimmers at TFCon Chicago in 2018, and I knew of his project and kind of knew but I didn't know his story. So I remember this very vividly, because he was kind of like a character on the Transmissions podcast. So he was kind of like a known quantity to me. But I rolled up to his table, I was listening to some of his music, and that clicked. I'm like, wait a minute, you're Jimmers. Oh. So I invited him to do a tableside interview. We chatted with that. You can listen to that during my TFCon Chicago recap. I don't remember the episode number, but it's a very brief interview. We only talked for maybe like 5-10 minutes, but in that, he told me his story about how he was inspired by, this journey he went on, and that he's really kind of made it his life mission to kind of spread the word of early detection. And because I mean it is a cancer that's survivable if you catch it early enough. And Jimmers was blessed to have it caught early enough to where, he's still with us, and we won't be rid of him anytime soon. But the thing now, I've mentioned over these last several episodes, it's like I want to try to impart some kind of advice before I close out any of these episodes. And the thing I want to mention tonight, the advice that I would like to pass on is, it's obviously a sensitive subject. It's obviously a sensitive area. It could be embarrassing. In fact, I find myself kind of blushing even as I'm talking about it. But I think what we need to get over is our stigma and our schoolgirl and embarrassment, and get checked, and maybe have those conversations with your doctor and say, hey man, I'm 42. I'm going to be 42 in 2 weeks. And again, that's a year younger. And I've never had a colonoscopy. I've never had, any of that kind of diagnostic stuff. So, at my next physical, which I'm probably going to schedule sometime sooner rather than later, I'm probably going to have those conversations with my doctor and say, hey, what do I need to do to perhaps be on the correct side of early detection? So again, I don't mean to drag the room down, but it's again, it hit me so hard because, it's it's the age thing, and it's the thing that, like, oh, colon cancer, that's old people stuff. Well, Chadwick Boseman has passed away. Sir Jimmers had it, and was able to beat it, but he still had it, and he's my age. So that's again, that's a wake up call for myself and for other folks my age as well. And I've in the days since, with Chadwick Boseman's passing, apparently that particular type of cancer that he had is more prevalent in the African American community, which I didn't know. But so I would think, if like you're in a vulnerable demographic group of folks, that, yeah, man, I mean, just get checked out. So I don't know, as I said, I don't know exactly what steps there are. But that would be my advice, is don't take your health for granted. I know that is something that I have done for the better portion of my adult life. I I consider myself to be very relatively healthy, meaning, like, I mean, I understand I'm incredibly overweight for my size and age and things like that, and it does cause me problems. I'm slow. It adds to my fatigue. I wonder why I'm so tired all the time. It's because I'm, carrying so much extra weight. So that I'm not unaware. But my point being is that I don't, I'm not on any kind of like medications. I don't really, have a lot of health problems that I think folks my age occasionally do. And I do take my relative good health for granted. And I would imagine that folks in a similar situation do as well. So that would be my advice for you for this week. And last thing about Chadwick Boseman and his performance as Black Panther, because I didn't mention this earlier, is that it's again, it's such a loss, but the folks that I feel bad for, the folks that I feel the most bad for, are the new generation of fans, kids, especially African American kids, but kids of all diversities, ethnicities, and all that. Black Panther represented something that we hadn't seen before. Now, we've had African American protagonists. We've had African American comic book characters brought to life. Spawn, Blade, and a Steel. But none of them were headlining a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that went on to earn $1 billion and was universally applauded. So that in itself makes it special. Black Panther was a very special movie in a lot of ways. But much like in, I don't know, how do I want to phrase that? Just seeing the character of Black Panther up on the screen, marked I think a milestone in representation, to where, kids can say, hey, that's me, in a way that folks that look like me, we've had our entire lives, and is probably incredibly easy to take for granted. But I do remember back in, I think this was around 2015, because I was at KGRG, and I remember when Black Panther was announced as being a character that was going to be introduced in the upcoming Captain America Civil War movie. And as soon as I heard that, I became incredibly excited. And I remember telling all of my friends and anybody that would listen, it's like, you don't understand, when this character is going to show up and become part of this universe, it's going to be changing. And when like the Black Panther movie was announced, it's like, you're not ready. And I remember that, like, in 2015, saying like, you're not ready for what how Black Panther is going to change the landscape, and how important this movie is going to be, and how important this character is. And I was right. I wasn't disappointed. I've always been a fan of the Black Panther character, even though I've not always followed his comics. But I just, the concept has always been cool. He's in a sense, he's always been one of my favorite periphery supporting characters. It's just a super cool concept, and just something that it was just really cool in terms of representation. And there's a couple things I need to own up to, because one, when Black Panther showed up in Captain America Civil War, he steals the show. Any scene that Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman, is in, he steals the show with just his, quiet, stern authority, and made me incredibly excited for the Black Panther movie. When I did my review of Black Panther, I said a couple things that, while I do still believe them, I kind of want to address them here and potentially kind of walk it back a little bit. One of the things that I had said is that Black Panther is actually the least interesting character in Black Panther. And one of the things that I had said is like that it's no knock on Chadwick Boseman's performance. It's how magnetic the other co-stars are. Letitia Wright as Shuri, his sister, Lupita Nyong'o as Nikita, and Denai Guerrera, just Angela Bassett, and Michael B. Jordan. I mean, it's like the supporting cast was so stacked. I felt that Black Panther kind of got lost in his own movie. And I still believe that to an extent, but ABC reran Black Panther over the weekend, commercial free, which I'm bummed that I missed, because I thought about it as well. I've got Black Panther sitting on my shelf. I could watch it anytime. I don't want to necessarily watch it on TV with commercials. And I really kind of did myself a disservice, because it was trending on Twitter all throughout the exhibition. And again, it was commercial free, and just folks just sharing their stories and sharing their thoughts. And I like I said, I did myself a disservice by not being a part of that. And apparently there was also a tribute segment to Chadwick Boseman that I haven't watched, that I'm going to see if I can find like on demand, or see if it's somewhere else. But yeah, I missed that. So I've been, just kind of like watching a lot of the same clips that you have, that, it's stray Facebook shares here and there. And what I'm reminded of is how good he is in that role, because, while my comments, I still stand by my comments that, he's the least interesting character in his own movie. Chadwick Boseman as bringing King T'Challa to life is spectacular. And yeah, so it makes me want to go back and watch that movie in a big bad way, and see if perhaps I see things differently. I mean, there would be no choice but to see it differently now, right? So I'm definitely going to do that. But there was a couple other things that I had forgotten about. And when somebody passes away, various video clips and factoids come up. One of them is that I had forgotten about this, but there would be no Black Panther without Denzel Washington. Apparently, Denzel Washington had gifted Chadwick Boseman a scholarship to whatever acting school it was. I don't remember. But yeah, it was kind of interesting, because I watched a video where Denzel is telling this story, but then he also talks about going to the premiere, and the film's already successful. He goes up to Chadwick Boseman and he's like, "Oh yeah, the movie's great, but where's my money?" I'm not telling the story very well, but it was it was really it's a heartwarming story. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to share, and again, I remembered this at the time, but I kind of forgot about it, is that one of the more famous lines, mild spoilers, well, actually no, huge spoilers for Black Panther, delivered by Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger, the villain. He has this line about, like, well, so T'Challa tells him, he's like, "Well, we will bury you here in Wakanda." And Killmonger says, "No, I bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that would prefer death to bondage." And it is like the most heart-wrenching line of the entire movie. And it speaks to Killmonger's conviction as a character. And again, there's a lot of these moments in the movie, but like where when you're watching it, and like whenever like colonizer is used as a slur and things like that, as a white person, you watch that, it's like, ooh, yeah. And that was one of those lines too. It just kind of tears your heart out. It's like, holy crap. And I remember being especially moved by the line. That line was inspired by Chadwick Boseman saying, like, well, hey, what if instead of him wanting to be buried in Wakanda. What if Killmonger says he wants to be buried somewhere else? And then, between him and Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler, they crafted it into the sequence that it became. And I just thought that was especially brilliant, and that was one of the stories I wanted to share about that. But huge tragic loss, and I don't really know what else to say about that other than again, dudes, guys, get yourself checked out, and don't take your health for granted. And I think on that note, that will wrap things up for this week's episode. Thank you so much for watching and for hanging out. I know a handful of folks jumped on the chat, didn't necessarily get to kind of like that level of participation this time, and I apologize for that. But again, thanks for hanging out. And if you want to listen to my podcast, Mike Seibert Radio, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can always check out the full show archive out on SoundCloud, like Apollo has done, and checked out some of those old episodes. You'll be kind of interested to see how the show has kind of changed and evolved. Like, share, rate, and review the podcast. Let us know what you like and what you'd like to hear more of in the future. Mike Seibert Radio is produced by Dave Sanders and is powered by Poddex. And again, use promo code MSRP10 at checkout, poddex.com, to get your own pack of conversation starting cards. With that, for Mike Seibert Radio After Hours, and for my guest Robo Apollo, my name is Mike. No live show next week because it's Labor Day and I'm not working on Labor Day, so I won't be at a spot where I can broadcast live, but I will be back Monday night, September 14th. That's the day before my birthday, returning After Hours, doing the Mike Seibert Radio After Hours live stream. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And until next time, wear your mask, wash your hands, and make good choices. Wakanda forever. Good night.